I'm going to take a look at two Sega beat-em-ups, Die Hard the Arcade and Dynamite Cop. Of course, I'm going to look at Die Hard the Arcade first. This game hit the arcades in 1996, and then it was released on the Sega Saturn in 1997. Now, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty positive this is the first 3D arcade beat-em-up. I was thinking maybe games like Dynasty Warriors and Fighting Force were released before this, but we didn't see those games until 1997. Anywho, let's go ahead and get into the game. One thing I can definitely tell you, this game may be called Die Hard, but it has nothing to do with Die Hard. The main character kinda looks like John McClane, but there's no reference anywhere saying that is John McClane. The story in the game has nothing to do with any of the movies either. You're just saving the president's daughter and beating up terrorists. Now, this game is definitely inspired off the first Die Hard movie, but not so much though that you had to name it Die Hard. It was only called Die Hard to sell a couple copies. In fact, in Japan, the game is exactly the same, and it's called Dynamite Dika. So as I mentioned earlier, the story of this game is the president's daughter has been kidnapped and you're trying to rescue her. I don't know how more cliche a story can be, but it's Die Hard. It's all about the cliches. In between levels, you're treated to cutscenes of what the terrorists are up to. They're pretty lame, but the dialogue is so generic that it's actually pretty funny and memorable. I don't know how many times I've said, "Where is the president's daughter?" So let me explain some of the game mechanics to you. Your buttons are punch, kick, and jump. The game also has a grappling system. After hitting the enemy a couple times, you can go ahead and grab them, and you just keep tapping buttons to do different combos. They also pull off some really cool, powerful wrestling moves that you're going to see in this video. One of the cool things definitely is all the weapons lying around. Right here I'm using the anti-tank rifle. You're also going to find pistols, axes, mops, just all kinds of crap lying around. Now when it comes to those button pressing sequences, all you simply do is press the button when it says to. If you mess up, you just lose some energy or have to fight. Now you also have jumping attacks in this game, but you don't jump very high, so they're not very useful. So when it comes to the fun factor in this game, it really has a lot to offer. I've beaten this game like 100 times between the arcade and the Sega Saturn. It's only a 30-minute game, but it's just so fun that you're going to keep going back. So getting into the graphics a little bit, you gotta remember this game was made in 1996 and it's pretty much just using Sega Saturn hardware, so it's not extremely impressive. I think for the most part the game's pretty easy on the eyes, but there's definitely some places that leave much to be desired. So all in all, when it comes to the graphics, it gets the job done. Now if you're wondering how the Sega Saturn port holds up, it's exactly the same. The arcade version of this game essentially uses a Sega Saturn. It's called the STV hardware, which is a cartridge-based Sega Saturn. Now on the arcade version of this game, you have no extra lives, so if you lose all your energy, gotta pop in another coin. And on the Sega Saturn version, it's the same, but you only get 4 credits, and that's not nearly enough to beat the game unless you're some kind of master at this game. So on the Saturn version, what they did is they put a classic arcade game called Deep Scan, which was released in 1979. It's a submarine game that is said to be inspired off Space Invaders. Playing Deep Scan, you can just keep earning more credits. Typically I would play until I've earned 30 credits. The only annoying thing is, if you ever wanted to play Die Hard the Arcade, you always have to play Deep Scan first, just because you want to have enough credits to beat the game. So anyway, let me go ahead and wrap this up. Now one of the best ways to describe this game would probably be Virtua Fighter meets Double Dragon. So with that said, I give this game an A. It's a pure arcade classic. Really, this is just a great game. It's about 11 years old now, and it's still one of the best beat-em-ups out there. Now moving on, I'm going to take a look at this game's sequel, Dynamite Cop. And in Japan, this was called Dynamite Dika 2. So this game hit the arcades in 1998, and we saw it on the Sega Dreamcast in 1999. Now being a fan of the original, I was really looking forward to this game. But unfortunately, this one isn't nearly as good. The original was a classic. This is just another mediocre game. I guess first of all, my biggest problem with this game is it's just fucking stupid. In this game, you're trying to take down an organization of modern day pirates who once again just happened to kidnap the president's daughter. So of course you're roaming around beating the crap out of people again, and for the most part the game mechanics do feel a lot the same. But as I said, the new style in the game, the types of enemies you fight, these new weapons, it's just a little overboard, kinda silly. I mean, in the original, you're in the building, you're beating up terrorists, the game is kinda serious, you know, it's Die Hard. I mean, on this one, you're beating up pirates, some of the enemies are just ridiculous, there's even a giant fucking squid. You'll see it later in the video. As you can tell from looking at it, the game is still a lot the same. It has the button pressing sequences, there's weapons all around the levels, and it has the same boss who just happens to be a cyborg now. Getting into the control, one major change was now you can punch all around. You can punch up, down, diagonal, wherever. On the original, you only punched left and right like in a 2D game. You being able to punch all around makes the game just feel different somehow. It also takes away the appeal that it played like a classic game. Being as it that I'm a huge fan of games like Double Dragon and Streets of Rage, this change in the control really hurts the game in a big way just because I missed the classic feel. Now when I got Die Hard the arcade on the Sega Saturn, me and my friends used to play it all the time because it's just such a fun game. But when I got this one on the Sega Dreamcast, we were looking forward to playing it, but we definitely did not enjoy it nearly as much. So these level designs, I mean, a giant squid for crying out loud, who thought of that? I guess they tried to make this game feel a little more action-packed with lots of crazy crap in it, but it just feels stupid. I mean, did I mention the last enemy is a cyborg now? What the fuck? So to make these video reviews, I beat both games from beginning to end. Playing Die Hard the arcade game again was great, it's just as fun as I remember. But this game is just only like 30 minutes and I'm just so painfully bored while playing it. I don't know why it's so boring, it just is. So I'm beating up this game pretty bad, but realistically, it's an okay beat 'em up. I've played a lot worse. I mean, I have played Fighting Force, Zombie Revenge, those are terrible games. Now you gotta bear in mind, I'm a huge beat 'em up fan. I've just been playing them for years, I love them, I wish we would have more. So in reality, this is an okay game. I don't love it by any means, but I was still able to play it a couple times and enjoy it. It didn't quite hit the spot for me. It's like comparing Streets of Rage 2 to Streets of Rage 3. I guess that doesn't make much sense if you like Streets of Rage 3 more though. So I give this game a C, and I really don't recommend it unless you're a beat 'em up enthusiast. Some of you may not even be aware of this, but there's actually a third one in the series that came out recently. It's called Dynamite Dika EX, Asian Dynamite. Now from my understanding, it plays pretty much just like this one, so I'm not excited about the game, but if I get the chance to play it, I'm definitely gonna jump on it. Anywho, a final thought, if you're a beat 'em up fan, go ahead and play these games, but if you're not so much, just go ahead and play the first one.